Well, good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to Tackle Talk Live on the Searcher. I'm Captain Art, and we got some good info to share today about trolling. Everybody talks about trolling. Callie and Celia get questions all the time about what sort of trolling outfit to bring and what sort of trolling lures to bring and what color's working best. And so we're hoping to answer some of those questions today. We got a myriad of lures selections that you can get from your favorite tackle store. And just a recap about the Searcher. We're still in a little bit of a maintenance period. We have some parts that are being shipped, and with the weather back east, it's probably going to be delayed a few more days, but we're still on schedule to have the boat ready to go April 1st. Our first 2.5 day spring trip that we have booked through Fisherman's Landing is April 30th over the weekend. And we're hoping that if that bluefin that we've had reports on here just recently within the past couple weeks, boats coming home from long trips have seen multiple schools of bluefin tuna down there just outside of San Quintin. So we're hoping that that fish moves up a little bit and we can get the ball rolling sooner than April 30th. So our plan is to have the boat ready to go April 1st. And if there's some fish being caught, then we'll be scheduling even sooner than April 30th. So that's to be determined. But we're on schedule as far as the boat's concerned, and we're looking forward to getting our 2021 season started sooner. Callie and Celia have done a tremendous thing so far this year. If you've been on the website, searchersportfishing.com, you'll notice there's a lot of orange and red there on trips that are already full or close to being full. And so if you're waiting for the fish to bite to make a reservation, I'm not sure I'd wait that long. You need to get on a trip and get it scheduled. And we have payment plans if you're interested to make it easier. And so trips are selling out, and Celia's taking reservations just about daily. So I wouldn't wait to get my name on a 2021 trip. It's booking up quick. Remember, searchersportfishing.com. And a lot of you have received our rack card here in the last week or 10 days. We did a mailer there with the 2021 schedule. And so hopefully you can take some time and check out the schedule and get on a trip that's got some room on it. So, we got a special guest today. Logan Flaxington is here. Logan is our breath of fresh air. It's always great to have somebody young and up and coming in the fishing industry that is passionate and enthusiastic like Logan is. And Logan started his multi-day trip fishing experience with us here on the Searcher on a 5-day trip 4 or 5 years ago. And he and his father, Chris, come out annually with us at least 2 times, maybe 3. And they have their own private boat. And so Logan's going to talk about his favorite setup and some lures that he's used in the past for trolling. And so welcome, Logan. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Art. I'm honored to be here. Hello, Searcher anglers. As Art said, my name is Logan Flaxington. I'm 16 years old, and I've been fishing since I was 3 years old, almost every single weekend, weather bearing. I've been fishing on these larger sport boats since I was 8 years old, and I started with Art and the Searcher crew back in 2017 on an Iserline 5-day trip. as Art said, today we'll be covering trolling. And down here, I brought my favorite trolling setup, which is a 6'6" Tiburon hammerhead custom rod I had wrapped with a TLD 30 2-speed. I like a bigger size reel, such as a 20 or 30 size reel for trolling, because you get more line capacity and you have more room for a heavier top shot. On this reel, I have a 100-pound braid backing, about 300 yards of it, connected to a top shot of 200 foot of 80-pound isoline mono. And tied on here, I have my favorite trolling lure. I love purple and black. Anyone who's been on a trip with me, either on a Penn sponsored trip, Isoline trip, knows whenever I troll a black and purple cedar plug daisy chain. The cedar plug is rigged with 200-pound mono connected to the stock hook that comes with the cedar plug, but it's caught everything from marlin, bluefin tuna, yellowfin tuna, all your offshore pelagics. Actually, one story I like to tell a lot is back in September on my annual 3-day trip with Steve Carson of Penn, I was trolling and I was the only one trolling. It was early in the morning, and Captain Armando actually told us, get ready for some bluefin, get ready to drop in. So I got ready with my troller out, and I ended up, instead of hooking a bluefin on the troll, I hooked about a 250-pound, what I think was a striped marlin with this exact lure. It took me about 5 or 10 minutes fighting the fish until it eventually came unbuttoned. But the nice thing about the trolling was it got 2 or 3 other people 45-pound bluefin, so it worked off in the very end. One thing I love about trolling is when you get bit. Who doesn't love that satisfaction of your reel just, the line just being ripped off with your clicker on? It's the best, to me, it's the best heart-skipping feeling, having to yell hook up to the captain, the boat stops. Yeah, when trolling, I also like to use a 6'6" rod, just so it's not overly long, but it's long enough. If I do hook up, I can get over the guys who are fishing the slide with live bait or lures or whatever they're using. So I like to get over, or either go over and under with my tuna shuffle. So, yeah.
That's cool. That's a great outfit, Logan. One thing to note, we have trolling outfits on board the Searcher. And so we rotate, we set up trolling teams at the beginning of the trip when you sign in with Celia and Callie. And so you keep track of your tag number and your trolling team number. That way, when it's your turn to troll, there'll be an announcement over the PA when to rotate minutes to an hour, if the captain remembers. And then there's a rotation. And so if you don't have a trolling outfit, you can see one of the crew. And we have seeker rods with Shimano TLD 30s to troll with. And so you can use one of the boat rods if you don't have one of those in your arsenal. And, you know, the one thing about trolling that's exciting is that you never know what you're going to get when you hook up. You don't know. There's so many different varieties of fish out there that you have a chance of hooking up on. So it's exciting in that regard. So Logan talked about a purple and black. Purple and black has been a color that has been used for decades now. And he has a purple and black cedar plug with a daisy chain. You can just tie a standard size cedar plug out without the daisy chain. And one of my favorite cedar plugs is one that's not painted at all. It's just the natural cedar, you know, right out of the package. It works really, really well. And it's one of the ones that everybody should have if you're planning on bringing your own trolling lure or trolling outfit. Is you got to have some sort of cedar plug. They really work. Celia and I were very, very lucky to go to Panama in November 2 years ago. And our friends had a 50-foot catamaran down there. And, you know, we thought, well, we're going to troll for sure so that we can have fresh fish to eat. And I put out this, was something with a lot of colors. This is a Zucker zucchini. I put it out there and we went for a ways and we didn't get a bite. And the captain, our friend from New Mexico, you know, without saying anything, he put out the Cedar plug and wasn't in the water 10 minutes and we were on. We had a nice big 20-pound Dorado that fed us for a couple days. So those Cedar plugs, they work really, really well. So there's a lot of options. You know, tuna lures, these Zucker zucchinis. Here's black and purple with a gold head. That's one of the ones that you would use just trolling for tuna. These things have been around for decades, and they work really, really well.
How do you guys like to rig those here on the boat?
Well, we actually we don't put a leader on. We just tie it straight to the 80-pound that's on the trolling outfit. The one thing that we do is we put a swivel on the hook. So we'll spread the hook apart and put one of these big swivels on the hook, and so we'll feed the 80-pound through and then tie the 80-pound to the swivel that's on the hook. So these are pre-rigged. They have a 100-pound mono with a large black swivel on it, and so they're pre-rigged. You can purchase them up there, or you can do like we do. You just purchase the lure and the hook and the swivel separately, and you put the swivel on the hook, and so that's how we rig them. So Logan, since black and purple is your favorite color, what's the reason for black and purple that you think that it has so much success?
I think I like to use black and purple because it's a different color that stands out to the fish, in my opinion. And for some reason, from evidence I've seen over the years of fishing now, whenever I'm trolling compared to the boat lures or other customers' lures, from Marauders to different types of brands, the Cedar plug, if it's not the first and only lure hit, it's always bit, and it's always that black and purple color that gets bit. If one other rod goes off, normally I set the rod, or I hit the reel and free spool, and I let the lure back a little bit, and the lure gets hit that way. But that black and purple, it just stands out, and I think it's a darker shade color. So when the fish look at it from under it, it stands out against the colors of the sun. So it's like a dark object darting across the surface of the water.
How far back do you put your lure?
It depends. If it's my choice, I like to go about 100 to 150 feet back, which is about my top shot length. But if all the trolling spots on the boat are taken, I can set it anywhere from 25 feet out to 200 feet out.
Okay.
And then, as you can see here, there's some other lures. Right here, I've got a Nomad DTX. This is a 165. Once again, it's that black and purple color. Notice a trend. It's a funky looking lure, but it's supposed to be great for tuna, wahoo. And actually with this one, this was my lure I caught my first ever wahoo on back in June. I was on an 8-day trip, and this lure outfished all the other lures on like a 4-to-1 basis. I think this lure exactly had 6 or 7 wahoo one day, where all the other ones had maybe 2 in one single day.
And what is and that's a Nomad?
Yeah, this is a Nomad DTX 200, all with the stock rigging on it. I've noticed that the rigging works perfectly good. You don't need to go through and hand rig your stuff for a wahoo or smaller grade tuna. I can't say so much about if you were to hook a 200-pound yellowfin or bluefin. I have no experience with trolling for those ones, but for school grade, the stock rigging works perfectly on these.
So this is the closest thing that I could find in the tackle store to a tuna clone. Tuna clones is something that we have used over the past 40 years now, trolling for tuna, and it's got a heavier weighted head to it, and you know, green and yellow has kind of been the color that stands out and has probably been the most productive. But if it's a little bit breed, these tuna clones work a little bit better because they're weighted. You know, they have a metal head, whereas, you know, the Zucker has got a fiberglass head, and so it's lighter. It's several ounces lighter. So the Tuna Clone, sometimes when it's breezy, works better. It stays in the water and gets a little depth to it, and sometimes that can be key if it's a little windy. And so, boy, if you got an old Tuna Clone in your tackle box, make sure that you dust that thing off and bring it out, because you can have some great success with lures that have metal heads that they're weighted, and so they travel a little bit deeper in the water column.
With the divers, what's your opinion of using a large treble instead of a single hook?
I like the single hooks just because it's the way all the stock, or it's the way they come stock. I'm sure you could use treble hooks. I try to stay away from them just because they're a pain to store, and I don't know. I think it throws off, from experience, it throws off the swimming methods of something like the DTS, where you want the action to come out of the jig, where it's making a weird reaction through the water swimming down. Oh, and one more thing I forgot about the DTS is, I'm not sure how you guys on the Searcher here like to do it, but from experience, the boats like to troll them in the corners because they swim differently. I'm not sure if you guys do it differently here, but so when I troll them, I like to keep them short, and I like to keep them on the corners of the boat.
Do you always troll with an 80-pound top shot, or are there times when you prefer 100-pound or even 60-pound top shot?
I always do an 80-pound top shot, and sometimes I'll fish a heavier leader on whatever particular lure I'm using. Like on the Cedar plugs here, I rig it with 200-pound Iserline mono, and that's where my like a bite leader almost for any tuna if they were to swallow that whole thing. But it's 80-pound mono to 100-pound braid all the time for me.
So here's Rapala's version of this one is a X-Rap Magnum, and these work really, really good too. And these have treble hooks, and so if you notice the size hook, the size of this treble hook compared to this single hook. With tuna, tuna have a little softer mouth. And so with a treble hook like this, there's a chance that smaller hook can rip out, whereas the single hook is less likely to rip out. So that's one of the reasons to use a single hook versus a treble hook. But these swim great and work really well. And again, we've got black and purple. That's the theme, black and purple. And so Rapala has a swim plug. And then here's a Halco manufacturers. This is a Max 130. It has treble hooks. So if you're in a zone where you're fishing kelps, or there's smaller tuna around, or Dorado or something like that, these smaller swim plugs really, really work well. And this one's kind of a sardine blue color, and we've used these in the past, and we've had success with them as well. And then here's a smaller version of the Nomad. And, these big Nomads are primarily for fishing for Wahoo. This one did well, Logan. It's got plenty of bite marks on it. So, the smaller lures are for smaller grade tuna and maybe Dorado or yellows on kelps, that sort of thing. And we use 80-pound test on our outfits, and it's heavy. It's definitely heavy enough for what we're catching.
Going back to the Rapala, do you ever notice with the treble hook, if you get a hook set in the gills, or do you notice a bite time decrease with the fish? Like it almost chokes the fish out? I hear some guys talk about that.
Yeah, I haven't heard that. I think it's, I guess it's a possibility. If you got a big old treble hook in you, then maybe you're going to give up sooner. But, I think that goes along the lines of fish story, maybe?
Yeah.
We have a question about X-Rap. Is that an X-Rap 20 or 30, and at what depth?
Okay, so this is a 40 feet X-Wrap Magnum. It's 6 1/4, and so yeah, it's a 40-foot X-Wrap. And so, I'm sorry, the question was depth.
Yeah.
So this thing's gonna, according to the manufacturer, it also depends on what speed you're going, but this is going to dive to 40 feet.
And Logan, can you troll a large cedar plug and a DTX diver at the same speed?
I do when I fish privately and my spread. I do it. I don't know if you're supposed to. I've never noticed a difference. I've still caught fish on it doing the same speed as the cedar plug.
And then there's a couple questions about your outfit that you might want to use for trolling. What's your minimum, and can it do double duty as a rail rod and troll rod?
It sure can. This exact outfit, back when I first started going on these sport boats, my dad caught his biggest tuna ever, which was about a 100-pound tuna on this exact setup. It also works as a dropper loop setup for your long range fishing from those 5 to 8 to 10 day trips. Yeah, it's a great setup to have. When I first started, I was using this a lot for the sinker rig fishing it with 60 to 80-pound leader line for that with the number 2 hook. But yeah, it can do double duty for the overall purpose.
And how would you connect your mono to the DTS?
To the DTS, it varies. For me personally, I like to use a ball bearing snap swivel. This is a 550-pound Bill Fisher snap swivel. I like these personally. Some guys don't like them. It's all personal preference. When I caught Wahoo down south, I was using these on my DTSs, and they swam perfectly fine, caught more fish than half the other lures on the boat. It's all personal preference. But.
So I got a question. So if the manufacturer, comes out of the box, it doesn't have a swivel on it. Yeah. So wouldn't you just tie the mono to this because the swivel changes the action on it? Possibly.
You could if you wanted to.
I would just tie my 200-pound right to the
if you wanted
right to the ring.
If you wanted to tie a leader, you could tie your 200-pound straight to that. You could use a San Diego jam knot if you really wanted to. But these are ready to go straight out of the packaging as soon as you buy them. Like Art was saying, a bunch of these lures, such as this one, you can buy up at Fisherman's Landing. They have them for sale for, I think, $38.
I think these bigger ones are more than that, Logan. Little ones are $37. Oh. Yeah, so this has got to be a $50 lure. Yeah, so make sure you got a good knot. You don't want to lose that thing. It's $50. Anyway, I don't know. It's just maybe it's an old school thing. It's like you take a yo-yo lure that has a ring on it. You don't put a swivel on there. You tie it straight to the ring because that's what the manufacturer recommended, so that that yo-yo lure has the action that's needed in order to attract a fish. So if you put a swivel on there, then it's not going to swim the same. So I'm not sure about trolling lures, but we can debate that sometime.
Logan, do you prefer a trolling rod with guides or non-roller guides? Sorry, with roller guides.
For me personally, I like a mix. As you can see on this rod, I have the first and the last guide on here as the roller guides, and then these are the solid, just normal rod eyes. It's like I said, it's all personal preference in the very end, but for this particular rod, I enjoy it. It keeps the line straight out in front or behind the boat. There's no different ways it could be going from the guides and stuff like that. So.
I think if you're going to make it, a multiple use outfit, then a stripper, a roller guide, and a roller tip is like a minimum, and then standard guides for the rest of it. And if you want, you can go with all rollers and a roller tip or partial like that. So it is personal preference. It depends on what your application is, what you're going to use it for.
And review your best rod for trolling, would you?
For trolling purposes, I like to use between a 6 and a 7-foot rod. This is my go-to setup. It's a 6'6" Tiburon hammerhead rod. It's a glass rod. It's a little heavier, but it gets the job done no problem. And like I was saying earlier, I like to use a 6'6" because it's not as short as the 6-foot rod. So if you do hook up and there's guys fishing the slide on the troll stop, you can get over or under them real easily, and you don't have to worry about hitting people in the head and stuff like that with the rod. So.
And did you have more to say about the lures that you got?
I was going to pick up on speed. You know, we basically we troll, you know, between 7 and 8 knots most of the time if we're in an area, and there are lots of times when we're trying to get to an area, or if we're in a fresh zone where we're just getting, maybe we've seen a water edge or something like that on a terrafin map. And so when we're just getting to a new zone, then we're probably going to troll a little bit faster so that we can cover some more ground and cover more area. But these things they're all rated, to up to 15 knots or 16 knots. You can troll that fast on your private boat. But a boat like the Searcher, we're between 7 and 8 knots is the trolling speed. And these things they all swim fine at that speed.
One more thing I would like to cover is when you're trolling on a boat like this, if your roll call number is up or no one's trolling and you'd like to go take a rod, if someone else hooks up or the captain announces over the PA we're gonna stop, make sure you reel in your rod. It really does help out the deckhands and stuff like that. It makes it so they can get to chumming bait out faster for you, or if people start hooking up, they can get over and start assisting, or if there's tangles. So you save them a lot of help when you're reeling your personal rod. Now, if you're not trolling and you see an open rod, it's always nice to do so. You can't be forced to do it, but it really does help.
That's something that we cover on the seminar, is that when it's your turn to troll, you're responsible for winding in that trolling outfit. We don't want to leave it out there. It can cause tangles and cause havoc back there. So, before you go for your live bait rod and reel, you need to wind that trolling outfit in. That helps a lot. Go ahead, Celia.
Do you definitely prefer a 2-speed reel for trolling, or can you get by with a single-speed reel?
Guys used to get by with single speeds forever. You can get by with it, but with the newer technology and for the price of some of these reels, such as a Penn Phantom 60, which is a great trolling outfit as well, I prefer 2-speed because, like I was saying earlier, I hooked a 250-pound marlin on one of my 3-day trips, and that I was not able to get any line in the fast gear. So when I turned it to low gear, I could start gaining some more line on it, so I wasn't getting completely spooled and stuff like that. So yes, I do prefer 2-speed when trolling.
Single speeds still work for trolling, but I mean, if you have a 2-speed, then why not use it?
Okay, so an opinion on flat fall, using UV light to make a flat fall glow.
I do that. When I come on these trips, I got my $9.99 little Blacklight I carried with me in my pocket of my rain jacket.
No, you don't.
I do. I can show you.
Battery operated Blacklight, so that
a little one, flashlight.
Okay.
I carry it at the top of my tackle bag. It comes on any tuna trip with me, just in the case we're fishing glow in the dark or nighttime stuff, so I can see it. I like to use it. It lights up.
Wait a minute. So you can see, or the fish can see your lure?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, it does get dark out or after all, so
when the sun goes down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I like to carry one of those with me, and I notice it does light up a lure a little better and faster, to me at least. I'm not sure how true that is to others, but to me personally, I do see a small difference in using a Blacklight versus a normal boat light that's on the back of it, or a little like general flashlight.
Wow, that could be the tip of the day right there. Now everybody's going to have Blacklights. It'll be like the 70s back there. You wouldn't know that. You're not old enough.
Yeah, that was ancient history.
Hey, ancient.
Little little out of my time, unfortunately.
So this is, kind of A to Z trolling. Remember now, you don't have to go out and buy a 2-speed reel and a 6.5-foot rod and reel combo to come trolling. All the boats have boat rods and reels, trolling outfits for you to use. And it's a process of helping to find the fish, help to locate the fish. I mean, we have all the technology with sonar and fathom meters going and guys in the mast and on the roof. And lo and behold, here's what we call a blind strike where, we didn't see anything on the machines. Or the guys didn't see a spot of fish on the surface or anything. And lo and behold, out of the depths, a bluefin tuna or a yellowfin tuna comes up and bites one of the trolling lures. So it's part of the process, and everybody needs to get involved with it. And when it's your turn to rotate into the trolling rotation, then we would encourage you to see the crew, and they'll set you up with a rod and reel.
Now you talk about a blind strike. How often when trolling does that blind strike turn into a full-on live bait school fish? Do you have that happen very often?
Yeah, it happens from time to time. Sure. Yeah, it's like anything else, it's one fish that's part of the school that gets curious and bites the lure, and his buddies are just hanging out. So yeah, absolutely. But there are times when we had it this fall fishing yellowfin tuna outside of San Quintin. We went down there and we had 5 trolling lures out there, and we got 5 yellowfin tuna on a troll stop, and we didn't see another fish. We didn't catch another fish. So, it goes both ways. Depends on the situation.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, so, that's one thing about trolling. You never know what you're going to get when you put a lure back there. So that's the exciting part of it.
So some more suggestions on lighting up your lure. A lava lamp. A glow.
Lava lamp. Battery operated? I don't think they make battery operated lava lamps.
A glow in the dark
that's
PL.
before your time too.
A glow in the dark PL68.
Certainly, yeah. That's before the flat fall glow in the dark craze came out. PL68 was the lure that we used for many, many years before all the fancy stuff came out.
And a GoPro camera strobe. Somebody's suggesting that too.
Okay.
And do you ever
It's going to be interesting at night this year.
Well, that is. How about
Everybody's
trolling at night? Do you have comments about trolling at night?
No.
Most of the time we're traveling at night, or here recently in the last 5 years we've been trying for bluefin with flat falls and glow in the dark stuff. So we're not trolling very much at night. We're rarely. It's not something that we do, and it's basically most of the time we're traveling from one spot to the next, or that sort of thing. So we're not trolling at night, and you need your rest because it's a long day at the rail.
And I think Callie has a question for Logan.
I have multiple actually. Blacklight or UV LED?
I use a Blacklight. I bought one off Amazon, and I think it was $9.99. Little cheap little thing, but it's worked for 2 seasons straight now, and it has no sign of dying out.
All right. Do you think the center or corner troll positioning gets better bites? And how far back do you put your trolling gear behind the boat?
For me, I'll start with the spread and how I set them. For me, trolling, if I were to set a spread, I always do the 2 corners that's shorter, closer to the boat, between 25 and 50 feet out. And the 2 center rods on a boat like this, I like to set a little further out so they're out of the way of the 2 short rods so there's no tangle possible. And I like to set those between 75 and 150 feet out. So, and about the question about more bites on the corner or center rod, I never seen a difference. It's all based on luck. If you're the lucky angler of the day, you'll be bit wherever you are.
Have you caught tuna on the flat fall with the rod in the holder?
I've never tried it, so I can't speak much on that.
And a question for Art. What do you think of the knife jig? Have you seen it work better than a flat fall?
You know, they're all kind of sort of the same. The knife jig, I think we had an example of one of those when Steve Carson was with us a couple of weeks ago. They're all basically the same premise, the same method and theory is, you know, something that flutters as it sinks and it's, you know, shiny and is attractive to the fish's eye. So I think that they both work. They're both effective.
Do we have Nomads on the boat as stock trolling gear on our boat?
You know, we do have some Nomads. Yes, we do. It's not stock. And it's one thing, you know, I mean, we don't just put the same things out there. If they're not working, then we're winding in and we're changing things up, and it depends on conditions. You know, going back to, you know, when we used to troll for albacore, you know, it used to be that the theory was that when it was sunny, you would put this flashy thing out there, and when it was overcast, you put the black and the purple. Now, I don't know if that made any difference or not, but that was the theory. So we're changing things up, you know. We're hoping that when we come back in off a trip, we've done the research and we know what worked last time. So we're leaving that one on. Maybe we're retying after we've caught a few fish, and so we're hoping that, you know, the trend is that same lure is going to work. So I wouldn't say that, you know, we have Nomads available to troll with, but it's not a guarantee. I mean, we're changing things up. If Nomads aren't working that day, then we're working to try and find something that does.
One more thing about trolling is if someone else gets bit within the first few seconds, don't be afraid to kick your reel into free spool and let that lure fall back. And then a lot of times you can pick up a bite that way. I know with these DTSs, I love to do that. If someone else hooks up, I drop them for 5 to 10 seconds, 1 1,000, 2 1,000. Set that reel and drag and let it sit there for a second. If I'm not bit within a couple of seconds, I just start reeling in. So that's something else you could always try. Just set the reel and free spool once someone else gets bit and let it fall back behind the boat.
So the theory behind that is that you're, you know, if you're letting it go back there 30 seconds or something like that, when you're winding in on the retrieve, then that lure is coming through more water. And so that's, you know, the lure is in the water longer. So that's what Logan's talking about.
There's a question about fishing for swordfish. I don't know.
Maybe.
On the troll?
Oh, no, not for troll.
No, it's,
Okay.
well, slow trolling for swordfish with mackerel.
Out of my league.
Okay.
It's
okay.
Slow, you know, we have in the past slow trolled sardines for Wahoo, and that's worked on 7 and 8 day trips. And it's just slow trolling live baits back there, and it's something that some of the boats use as a practice. But you know, we're always in search of the, you know, the next school or the bigger school or something that wants to bite. And so, you know, slow trolling baits is something that you use kind of when things aren't biting that well, they're finicky, and so you're slow trolling live baits when the bite isn't on that much.
Logan, do you retie your trolling lure after every fish or every third fish, or how often?
It depends. A lot of times if I get bit and I'm using 200-pound leader, I'll go through and feel my line, and 200-pound is super strong. So if I don't feel anything, or if I feel like a little mark is there but not much, there's no nicks in the line, I leave it for a second and maybe a third fish. But after those second and third fish, I re-crimp and everything. So I go through and redo everything just to be safe.
It's pretty obvious, you know, depending upon what size fish you caught, you know, we've talked about it in the past with circle hooks and that sort of thing to take the abrasion out of it. So you can just run your finger over the leader, and if it's frayed, then that's a sure sign that you gotta retie.
One more thing I would like to cover is, speaking about that, since I troll these big cedar plugs, the last cedar plug is always a lot longer. So when I do get hooked up, the fish always come up and grab it to about here. So I don't normally have to worry about them hitting my line. So my lure line lasts a lot longer, I've seemed to notice. Out of the last few years, I've had to re-rig maybe once a season. I had to re-rig twice last season. And the only reason was when I hooked a marlin, the bill started to tear this leader line up and frayed and stuff like that. So that's the only time I would deliberately retie and re-rig everything.
Here's an excellent question. When we used to troll for albacore, we were always afraid that if we lost the troll fish, the rest of the school would run away. In your opinion, do yellowfin and other fish react the same way?
It depends.
Good answer.
Yeah, fish are fish. It's hard to bear or tell.
There's a lot of theory about that if you lose the troll fish, but I'm not really a proponent of that. After decades of you know, they're either going to bite or they're not, and maybe you got lucky and you know you got a bite on the troll and it fell off, and then the rest of his buddies came around and bit anyway. So I think I think there's some myth to that if you lose the troll fish, then the rest of the school goes away. I think that you know, over history, you'll probably find that a lot of people feel that way, but I'm not sure I believe it.
So here's a tip. This angler says he's gotten bit many times dropping his trolling gear back after someone else gets a strike.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what Logan was talking about. And we recommend that when we're trolling for wahoo. A little extra time for trolling lure in the water. And, you know, if there's one fish out there, maybe there's more. So there's a sign of fish. So you have a chance of getting a bite by dropping it back there. Count to about 30 and then put the reeling gear and wind it in as fast as you can, and sometimes you get a bite that way.
There's a question about maybe a change in how boat lines go. They used to be tight to the boat.
Yeah, you know, I don't know of. We certainly haven't had boat lines now for 25 years now. You know, we're about making sure that the passenger catches a fish, and so we're just using trolling outfits, and we're not using boat lines. It used to be, you know, back in the 70s and 80s when we caught albacore, you know, it was a way to catch a fish. Sometimes we would put sinkers on and have them go deeper and that sort of thing, and so that was a way for the crew to get fish or the galley to get fish. But we've gotten away from that. It's more about the customer. It's more about having the customer catch a troll fish rather than the boat line catch one. And, you know, in the past we would, you know, we'd raffle them off or give them away, or like I say, give them to the galley or that sort of thing. And so I don't, you know, I could be wrong. Maybe there are boats that still use boat lines, but for us, it's an inconvenience. You know, you got to pull the boat line in, and maybe it gets tangled with a customer, and you know, you guys pay good money to come out. You don't want to get tangled with the crew boat line, so we don't use them anymore.
When you're trolling with diving plugs for wahoo, do you prefer a wire leader or extra heavy fluoro?
Oh, Logan, yeah. What do you got there, buddy?
For my
wire?
No, I don't actually use
one?
wire on mine.
No.
For
You're
my
gonna risk losing that $50 lure.
I got enough fish on that one. I don't want to lose it, but
So is it fluorocarbon or is it just
I use
mono?
fluorocarbon. I use a 135-pound Blue Label Cedar fluorocarbon. And a lot of times I crimp it to the lure. If I want to get it done real quick, I'll tie it, but I prefer to crimp everything just because it's one less knot you have to deal with. But I've never used wire on my Wahoo leaders or divers.
When you get bit, so it's about how, okay, do you pump the rod or just wind?
Just wind if you get bit on the troll. You just want to you want that line completely tight and you just wind.
Have you noticed daisy chains early in the morning working for smaller class bluefin?
I don't know for sure. I've never noticed a difference. I've only caught a few bluefin on this daisy chain, but I know it worked for bluefin because I have caught bluefin on it. And I've never really paid attention to the time of day when it gets bit.
And for Art, when you use the kite, will you use the kite if necessary on the November trip? And if so, will you have boat rods or should we each bring one?
We have boat rods available. And so if we have a kite out, if the conditions are good and the fish are biting them, then we'll have a kite out for sure. And we have boat rods that you can use.
And is a single speed reel okay for my 40-pound outfit since I can only fish 12 pounds of drag?
Yeah, a single speed, it depends on what grade of fish you're landing at the time. I mean, if we're fishing 60 to 100-pound tuna and it takes 40 pound to get a bite, then I want a 2-speed reel because it's a game changer. A single speed reel is it's more difficult to land that grade of fish. So it depends on actually what's going on during the day that you're out there or the trip that you're out there. And so whenever you can use a 2-speed, why not? And 12 pounds of drag on 40 pound is 7 or 8%. I think that's a little light myself.
So
I'm more of a 30 or 32% of the breaking strength of the line. I've always fished a little tighter drag than most, just because I want to get them in.
Yeah. See, I know for me, I always start light, and with a lever drag I'm speaking from, as I start the fight, I start in a little lighter drag, and as the fight progresses, once that fish gets deep, I move it up positions. Like for a lot of my lever drags, they have engraved numbers on them that come from the manufacturers. So I might move up from the number 2 spot to the number 3 spot. And once it's down deep, I might be all the way in stripe for that fish, which my stripe might be like 28 pounds on some of my bigger lever drags. Just moving up positions as the fight progresses, just to quicken it up and stuff.
So have I ever told you your drag might be too loose, Logan?
Your deckhands have.
Okay.
Logan, what's your best trolling lure for tuna?
This Cedar plug I've been talking about. It's the one. If I have one lure to pick out of everything, this is the one I will always pick. If you've ever been on a trip with me and you see me troll, you notice you always see me with the weird looking purple thing in the water. This is that same Cedar plug. I think this lure is almost 15 years old now. My dad used to use it for albacore, but it's still going strong. And yeah, it's my favorite lure to use for tuna and stuff like that.
And then we want a forecast. Bluefin, yellowfin forecast. What do you think? What do you guys think?
We're going to catch something. I think that, that we are really, really fortunate to have this local stock of bluefin around. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get bluefin this year. As far as yellowfin is concerned, later in the season, when the water warms up a little bit, then that yellowfin moves up and into the area, and who knows? I mean, it can be not that far away in just 65-degree water. But we're gonna catch some bluefin tuna for sure. I guarantee it. We're gonna. It's like I said. It's. I don't know if it's scientifically proven, but for the last 10 or 12 years now, just by going out there multiple times, that fish is a local stock, and it's spawning and reproducing. And so, you know, we're fortunate to have this bluefin tuna fishery right in our backyard. So plan on catching some bluefin tuna for sure.
Yeah, how many places can you go out 30, 40 miles and go catch 3, even 400-pound fish now? That's one thing we're lucky for, in my opinion, having that access in our backyard.
Your tuna lure is available at tackle stores in general?
The cedar plug version, I'm not sure on that part. For a single cedar plug, yes. Depending on the color you want, it might be out of stock, but for a daisy chain version like I have here, you can either do what I like to do is I like to go through and buy like maybe 2, maybe a third cedar plug, and I take the actual plugs off the air rigging and I make my own chain out of them. And that's how I rig my cedar plugs. I'm not sure if they sell them pre-made like this. I've never seen one in a tackle store from what I've seen, but
well, they do, breaking news. Stop getting all this stuff for demonstration purposes, and they got them for sale. They're not purple. They're just regular cedar.
Oh.
But there's cedar plug daisy chains on the shelf. You can get them in your tackle store, I'm sure.
Any more questions?
You want me to zoom in closer to your daisy chain?
Oh boy. Yep. So how many is it? 4?
There's 4 on here, and I like to do my last cedar plug a little longer than all the other ones.
Why is that?
Because I feel, it's my personal preference, when it's trolling, I feel the last one gets more action out of it, having a little longer leader. So more momentum and more action is provided with it.
Alrighty.
So as you see, the purple and black, 2-sided, and these ones are about 3 inches, and the last one might be 5 to 6 inches, if I have my sizes right. And the hook on there is the stock hook that's comes with them. It has to be the stock hook, I believe, to use with these, because a normal, like an owner Jobu hook, they won't fit through the holes of the cedar plug. I've tried, I've never got one to really fit through there. So that's the cedar plug.
How are you tying the ones without hooks?
I crimp everything. I don't know if you can zoom in there, but I take it right there. That's a single crimp. That's really about 130-pound crimp, but I put it through one time on here, and it stops the cedar plugs from going down.
Oh, so you're just crimping that on the leader?
Pretty much, yeah. And for the actual cedar plug, I use 200-pound crimps, the proper size for a 200-pound leader, and I actually crimp like the hook on at the top of the leader with the swivel and stuff like that. So I use a couple of different sizes of crimps to answer the question.
Whenever you're crimping, it's key when you buy the monofilament leader or fluorocarbon leader that you match the crimp with the size mono. That's really, really important, because if you use the next size up, then that crimp isn't going to cinch down, and you know that will fail. So you want to make sure that you match the crimp size with either the monofilament leader or the fluorocarbon leader. That's really important.
I think a lot of the companies are coming out with little paper charts when you buy like a kit of crimps with your size measurements. Like 200-pound test might be like 2.0 millimeter. So when you get your crimps, you can match up the size of the crimp to your line test.
They do that with wire, so I'm sure they'll do that with monofilament and fluorocarbon too.
Logan, how long have you been fishing, and in your opinion, what fights harder, a bluefin or a yellowfin?
I'm 16 years old right now, and I've been fishing since I was 3 years old. I fish weather bearing every weekend, sometimes 2 to even 3 days a week. And for me, my biggest bluefin is about 150 pounds, so I think bluefin fight harder on that part. I've never caught any yellowfin over 40 pounds, so maybe they fight harder. It's all up in the air still. I've got a lot of time to experiment though, so we'll see.
What lures are next to the feathers?
that's the Nomad, the Wahoo lure, and this is a smaller one. So these are divers. These are plugs. You know, they have this plastic nose contraption on the front of it that makes it dive as it's being pulled through the water. So,
and these come through, I think, like 8 or 9 different colors you can buy, a wide variety of them.
yeah, and don't forget Rapala and Halco. There's several plug manufacturers out that you can find at your local tackle stores for sure. Fisherman's Landing Tackle, they were kind enough to let me borrow some examples so that we had something to talk about today. So thanks to Fisherman's Landing Tackle, they support us in multiple ways. And you know, one thing about Fisherman's Landing Tackle too, if you're coming out on the searcher and you want to find out what's biting and what to bring, you can call Fisherman's Landing Tackle and say, hey, what's biting? What do I need to have? And you know, they're well staffed up there and very knowledgeable people, and they can tell you what's going on real time, and that way you make sure you're not missing something when you come out.
Logan, can you recap what size reel you have on your trolling rod?
On my trolling rod, I like to use a 20 to 30 sized reel. This is a TLD 30, Shimano TLD 30 2-speed. I load it with a 100-pound Power Pro braid, and I connect it to 80-pound Iserline monofilament. I like to have like a 20 or 30 sized reel because it's a little bigger sized reel, a little better drags, and you get heavier and more line on it, which sometimes you need that heavier line. So that's the reel, and it's a 2-speed.
Going to those Nomads, are they any good for bluefin?
Sure they are. They bite them. You betcha. I don't know if they're going to bite this one, though. It's kind of ugly. What do you think?
You never know.
I guess you got to put it out there and try it.
It's like everything else. I've seen
So we're dependent on you. You're going to have this out there, or are you going to troll your cedar plug daisy chain?
I might.
You bought this.
I'm going to experiment with it.
You got to try it, right?
I got to get my money out of it.
I wouldn't bite that. That's ugly. That's ugly. I'm gonna bypass this, and I'm gonna go for this one because it's prettier. Okay, so Logan, well, we can't do that. Thank you, buddy, for coming down. Thanks to your dad for coming along, and thanks for coming out fishing on the Searcher. We'll look forward to seeing you this year. You're coming out on a couple trips, and I think one of them's the 3-day trip with Steve Carson
in September.
And who knows, you might be taking Steve Carson's place. Right, Steve? And so we're happy to have everybody here with Tackle Talk Live. It's something that we're doing just to keep the information flowing on info for up and coming trips. And you can go to searchersportfishing.com. You can go to Instagram or Facebook for this. And you can also go to YouTube, our YouTube channel. It'll be there if you want to reference back and listen, or maybe you joined late and didn't see the whole thing. So you can go to our YouTube channel and check out Trolling with Logan. So thank you all very much.
Yep, thank you, and hope to see you out here soon.
Good job, kid.
Thank you.
I didn't know how you got.
You're good.